Ladies and gentlemen, we are all searching for something more clarity, more impact, more fulfillment. But here's the truth. Leveling up doesn't require a dramatic life overhaul. It starts with small intentional choices we make every single day. And today, I want to share with you 12 choices, not rules, not hacks, but conscious decisions that can elevate your life starting right now. True success begins when we stop looking outward for validation and start looking inward for purpose. Too many of us live lives dictated by how we want others to perceive us. We filter our decisions through the lens of popularity. Will this make me more liked, more followed, more accepted? But the pursuit of popularity is a moving target. It changes with trends, with culture, with the opinions of others. What's popular today might be irrelevant tomorrow. And when we tether our self-worth to how others see us, we surrender control of our lives. We begin to live reactively instead of intentionally. Purpose, on the other hand, is steady. It doesn't shift with opinions or algorithms. It's not rooted in external applause, but in internal alignment. Purpose is the deep knowing that your life, your gifts, your story matter beyond likes and shares. And the most powerful people in history, the ones who truly changed the world, were not the most popular when they started. In fact, they were often misunderstood, criticized, and even rejected. But they had purpose. And that purpose gave them the resilience to keep showing up even when no one was clapping. Popularity says, do what makes people like you. Purpose says, do what aligns with your values. And that difference, it changes everything. Because when you live for popularity, you become a shapeshifter. You mold yourself into what the world wants you to be. But when you live for purpose, you become grounded. You know who you are. You know what matters. And that certainty draws the right people to you, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you're being real. The hard truth is that living a purpose-driven life might make you less popular, at least at first. It might mean saying no to trends that don't fit your values. It might mean choosing a path that looks odd to others. It might mean being misunderstood. But what you gain is far greater than what you lose. You gain clarity. You gain self-respect. You gain fulfillment. And over time, you'll realize that popularity without purpose feels hollow. It looks good on the outside, but leaves you empty on the inside. Purpose doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't beg for attention, it calls you to attention. And in a world obsessed with being seen, purpose invites you to see the bigger picture, to see who you really are, to see what you're here to do. When you live with purpose, you stop asking, how do I look? And start asking, what difference am I making? You stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, am I living truthfully? This choice to live for purpose instead of popularity is not just about leadership or business or social impact. It's about your peace. It's about your legacy. Because when the noise fades, when the crowd moves on, when the spotlight dims, what will remain is the person you've become and the lives you've touched. Purpose builds substance. Popularity builds image. One feeds the soul, The other feeds the ego. There's something powerful about waking up each day knowing your why. It centers you. It protects you from comparison. It grounds you in something deeper than approval. And the amazing thing is this: the more you live with purpose, the more you attract the kind of people who resonate with who you truly are. Not the curated version, not the filtered version, but the real you. And that kind of connection is more valuable than any viral moment. Choosing purpose over popularity is a daily decision. It's not a one-time shift. It's choosing to speak up when it's easier to stay silent. It's choosing to stay true to your values when shortcuts tempt you. It's choosing to build something meaningful even if no one's watching yet. Because purpose will always outlast popularity. And when your life is rooted in purpose, you don't need to chase the crowd. The right people will find you. And more importantly, you'll find yourself. Motivation is a powerful spark. It gets you excited, it lifts your energy, and it can push you to start something new. But motivation is also inconsistent. It comes and goes. It's influenced by your mood, your environment, your energy levels. You can wake up one day ready to conquer the world, and the next day, that fire is completely gone. And that's where so many people get stuck. They think success depends on how motivated they feel. But the truth is, success is built on discipline, not motivation. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment or the right energy. Discipline is the decision to show up every day, no matter what. It's the quiet commitment to keep going even when no one is watching, even when the excitement has faded. Discipline says, I will, while motivation says, I feel like it. And the gap between average and extraordinary is filled with people who chose to stay disciplined long after motivation wore off. When you rely on motivation, you live in a cycle of inconsistency. You're productive when you're inspired, and you stall when you're not. But life doesn't reward inconsistency. It rewards habits. It rewards systems. Discipline is the engine that keeps your life moving forward even on the hard days. It's brushing your teeth every day, not just when you feel like it. It's going to the gym even when it's raining. It's making the call even when you're nervous. It's doing the work even when the mood is gone. The people we admire the most, the high performers, the innovators, the leaders, they are not driven solely by passion. They are grounded in discipline. They've built routines. They've trained their minds to act beyond emotion. They know that feelings are fleeting, but habits are reliable. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing what matters again and again. And it's not always glamorous. In fact, most of the time, discipline is quiet. It's waking up early to practice. It's saying no to distractions. It's turning off the noise and doing the hard, boring, necessary work. There's no spotlight on discipline, but it's the backbone of every meaningful achievement. Behind every book written, every business built, every transformation made is someone who decided to stay consistent even when it was uncomfortable. Motivation might get you to start writing the first page, but discipline gets you to finish the last chapter. Motivation might push you to set a goal, but discipline keeps you moving when progress feels slow. There are days when you won't feel like showing up. That's normal. That's human. But discipline says, show up anyway. It's on those days when you act without feeling inspired that real growth happens. That's where mental toughness is built. That's where confidence is formed. Discipline also builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through on a commitment, even a small one, you reinforce the belief that you are capable, that you are reliable. That self-trust is powerful. It becomes the foundation for everything else you do. Because when you trust yourself to keep going, you don't need motivation to validate your effort. You're not chasing external energy. You're driven by internal commitment. Over time, discipline actually creates motivation. When you start seeing the results of your consistent actions, you feel more inspired. Not the other way around. You don't wait to feel good to take action. You take action, and then you feel good. That shift is what separates the dreamers from the doers. It's the reason why some people talk about change while others live it. Every breakthrough in life is on the other side of a disciplined choice. Whether it's getting healthier, learning a skill, building something meaningful, none of it happens by accident. It happens by design. And that design is shaped by daily decisions. Small, simple choices repeated over time lead to massive results. And the beauty is, you don't need to feel inspired to make them. You just need to be committed to the process. Discipline is what turns goals into habits, habits into progress, and progress into transformation. When you anchor your life in discipline, you no longer wait for the perfect mood. You create the conditions for growth. You take control. You become the kind of person who follows through, not because it's easy, but because it's right. And once you realize that, motivation becomes a bonus, not a requirement. Perfection is one of the greatest illusions we chase. And it often holds us back from doing the very things that would help us grow. It tells us not to start until everything is just right. It whispers that we're not ready yet, that we need more time, more skill, more polish. But the truth is we become ready by starting. We grow through action, not contemplation. Progress is what moves us forward. Perfection keeps us stuck. Progress is messy. It involves missteps, experiments, and learning on the go. It's not always neat, and it rarely feels comfortable, but it's real. It builds momentum. Every small action, every imperfect step, every awkward beginning adds up. That's how mastery is born, not through flawless planning, but through consistent practice. Perfection is a finish line we never reach, but progress gives us daily victories. It reminds us that we're moving, that we're growing, that we're doing something. When you aim for progress instead of perfection, you give yourself permission to start before you're fully confident. You learn through doing, not just through thinking. And that learning becomes a cycle. You act, you reflect, you adjust, and you improve. That loop is the foundation of growth. Perfection, on the other hand, creates pressure. It demands that you get it right the first time. And under that pressure, most people freeze. They delay. They overthink. They never begin. Perfection often masks itself as high standards, but it's really fear in disguise. Fear of judgment. Fear of failure. Fear of not being good enough. So instead of launching the idea, you keep tweaking it. Instead of sharing the message, you keep rewriting it. Instead of applying for the opportunity, you keep preparing for it. And the longer you wait, the more your confidence erodes. Progress breaks that cycle. It teaches you that action brings clarity. It shows you that movement beats perfection every single time. There's power in doing something, even if it's not perfect. A rough draft written is worth more than a perfect idea in your head. A workout done poorly is still better than none. A conversation that's awkward is still better than silence. In progress, there's humility. You accept that you're not there yet, but you're on your way. That mindset opens the door to feedback, to learning, and to resilience. Perfection tries to shield you from discomfort. Progress invites you to embrace it. Growth happens in motion. It happens when you take the leap before you feel completely ready. It happens when you try, fail, reflect, and try again. That's how confidence is built, not by waiting until you're flawless, but by proving to yourself that you can keep going even when you're not, that you can handle mistakes, that you can adapt, and that every step, no matter how imperfect, matters. One of the most liberating shifts you can make is to replace the question, is this perfect, with, is this better than yesterday? That single shift removes the weight of unrealistic expectations and replaces it with a healthy standard of progress. It encourages momentum, not paralysis. It rewards effort, not just outcomes. And that kind of thinking is what separates people who evolve from those who stay stuck. Progress is honest. It doesn't pretend to have all the answers. It shows up anyway. It keeps going when motivation fades. It takes pride in being a work in progress, not a finished product. And when you embrace that mindset, you allow yourself to evolve naturally. You stop trying to control every detail and instead focus on consistent improvement. There will always be more to learn, more to refine, more to do. But the people who achieve great things aren't the ones who waited until everything was perfect. They're the ones who started where they were, used what they had, and got better along the way. They understood that real change doesn't happen overnight. It's built brick by brick, step by step, through the discipline of progress. The invitation is simple. Start now, start small, and stay in motion. Let each day's effort be slightly better than the last. Let each misstep be a lesson. Let each success be a reason to keep going. Because progress compounds. It stacks. And over time, it transforms not just what you do, but who you become. Comparison is a silent thief. It sneaks in slowly, and before you realize it, it robs you of your peace, your confidence, your joy. In today's world, it's easier than ever to compare. With every scroll, we're given glimpses of other people's lives, their success, their looks, their opportunities. But what we see is just the highlight reel. We don't see the struggle behind the scenes. We don't see the doubts, the failures, the long nights. Still, we compare our behind the scenes to someone else's perfectly edited moment, and we start to feel like we're falling behind, like we're not enough, like we're too late. Comparison creates scarcity in your mind. It tells you there's only so much success to go around, only so much beauty, only so much opportunity. And that lie makes you compete with people who aren't even running the same race. You start to shift your path to match theirs. You chase their version of success, not realizing that it might not be meant for you. But contribution giving, creating, serving is the antidote. When you shift your focus from comparison to contribution, everything changes. Contribution pulls you out of the small mindset of me and into the bigger purpose of we. It reminds you that your gifts, your perspective, your story have value not because they're better than someone else's, but because they're uniquely yours. When you contribute, you stop trying to be impressive and start trying to be impactful. You stop asking, how do I measure up? And start asking, what do I have to give? And that shift leads to fulfillment. There's something deeply powerful about focusing on how you can help rather than how you compare. It reconnects you with your purpose. It puts you in a state of gratitude. It gives your efforts meaning beyond personal gain. When you make your life about contribution, you stop needing constant validation. You know that you matter because you're making a difference. You're no longer chasing approval, you're building something meaningful. Everyone has something to offer. Whether it's your time, your encouragement, your knowledge, or simply your presence, your contribution counts. And the beauty of contribution is that it multiplies. A single word of encouragement can shift someone's entire day. A small act of kindness can ripple out in ways you'll never fully see. The impact of your contribution is not always visible, but it's always significant. Contribution also creates connection. When you give without expecting, you build trust. You build community. You show up not to compete, but to collaborate. And in a world that's constantly telling people to hustle harder, be louder, and stand out more, the quiet power of showing up to serve is rare and it's magnetic. People are drawn to those who live for something greater than themselves. Comparison, on the other hand, isolates. It makes you see others as rivals instead of allies. It breeds insecurity. It keeps you looking over your shoulder, measuring your progress by someone else's metrics. But the moment you choose to contribute, you break free from that trap. You stop waiting for the world to validate you, and you start making the world better in your own way. You don't need a platform to contribute. You don't need a title or a huge audience. You just need a willingness to show up and give what you can where you are with what you have. That mindset creates momentum. It builds confidence. It reminds you that you have agency. Even when things feel uncertain, you're not just consuming, you're creating. You're not just watching, you're participating. The people who live with the most joy are not the ones who have the most. They're the ones who give the most. Not always in material ways, but in presence, in energy, in purpose. Contribution fills you up in a way comparison never can. Because while comparison always leaves you feeling behind, contribution leaves you feeling fulfilled. It's not about being the best. It's about being useful. It's about showing up and saying, how can I help? What can I offer? When you live a life of contribution, you become part of something bigger. Your days gain direction. Your work gains meaning. Your relationships gain depth. And slowly you stop obsessing over how far you have to go because you're too focused on how far you've come and who you're helping along the way. Your environment has more influence on your behavior than most people realize. You might think that your success is only about motivation, goals, or mindset. But in truth, it's also deeply shaped by who you surround yourself with. The people in your life are either fueling your growth or draining your potential. They're either lifting you higher or holding you back. Every conversation, every interaction, every influence is shaping your decisions and your direction. The fastest way to change your life is to change the circle you operate in. If you're always surrounded by people who think small, who complain, who play it safe, eventually you start doing the same. You begin to normalize mediocrity. You accept average as the standard. Not because you don't want more, but because your environment doesn't challenge you to grow. We're social creatures. And whether we admit it or not, we take cues from the people around us. That's why it's critical to be intentional about who gets access to your mind and your energy. You need people who stretch you, people who don't just accept your excuses but lovingly call you out on them, people who live with integrity, who take action, who walk with purpose. Being in that kind of circle will challenge your comfort zone. It will make you question old patterns. It will inspire you to raise your standards. And that's a good thing. And growth doesn't happen when you're the most disciplined person in the room. It happens when you're surrounded by others who push you to be better. Your environment isn't just made up of people, it's also what you consume. The books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the content you scroll through. If your feed is full of negativity, gossip, and distractions, don't be surprised when your focus weakens. But when you surround yourself both physically and digitally with voices that challenge you, educate you, and encourage you, your inner world starts to shift. You begin to think differently. You make different choices. Your goals feel more possible. This is why mentorship matters. This is why proximity matters. You don't have to personally know every person who inspires you, but you should be close enough to their mindset to absorb their energy. Study them. Listen to them. Watch how they think. Pay attention to how they respond to problems. What you expose yourself to consistently becomes your norm. And if you expose yourself to high standards, excellence becomes your baseline. Sometimes leveling up your environment means having hard conversations. It means recognizing when a friendship or relationship no longer aligns with where you're going. That doesn't mean you judge people or cut everyone off, but it does mean you become mindful of what you allow to shape you. Not everyone can go with you to the next level. Some people were meant to be part of your story, but not your future. Holding on out of guilt or comfort can cost you your growth. Protect your energy. That doesn't mean isolating yourself, but it does mean being selective. If someone constantly drains your motivation, dismisses your dreams, or fuels your doubts, that's not an accident. That's influence in action. You deserve to be around people who believe in your potential even when you forget it yourself. People who challenge you, not just to do more, but to be more. The right environment can speed up your growth exponentially. Think about how much faster you learn when you're surrounded by people who are already doing what you aspire to do. Their wisdom becomes your shortcut. Their mistakes become your lessons. Their momentum becomes contagious. You start rising not because you're trying harder, but because your environment makes it normal to rise. Curate your space like your life depends on it, because it does. Who you allow in, what you listen to, what you watch, what you tolerate, it's all shaping your identity. And your identity shapes your future. When you elevate your circle, you elevate your life. Not instantly, but steadily. Day by day, your thinking improves, your habits improve, your standards improve, and eventually your results do too. You don't need a perfect environment to start growing, but you do need one that supports your growth, one that believes in possibility, in change, in purpose, one that doesn't just reflect who you were, but who you're becoming. Choose wisely, because your circle is either your greatest asset or your greatest limitation. Fear is an inevitable part of the journey toward growth. It's something every successful person has to face. Fear doesn't disappear just because you gain experience or reach a certain level of success. In fact, as you level up, the fears you encounter often evolve into something bigger and more complex. But what differentiates those who succeed from those who don't is how they deal with fear. While most people let fear stop them in their tracks, the courageous ones learn how to face it head on. Use it as fuel, and move forward despite it. Fear is not inherently negative. It's simply an emotion designed to keep you safe. It triggers when you're about to do something unfamiliar, something risky, something that challenges your status quo. However, the fear that holds most people back isn't the kind that signals actual danger. It's the kind that prevents growth. It's the fear of failure, of judgment, of the unknown, of rejection. And the trick is to recognize it for what it is. Natural response to stepping out of your comfort zone. The key to overcoming fear isn't to avoid it, but to make the conscious decision to move through it. Instead of waiting for fear to dissipate, you need to act in spite of it. Every time you push through fear, you build your confidence. The more you face your fears, the more evidence you gather that you're capable of handling whatever comes your way. It's not that fear becomes easier, but your ability to move through it becomes stronger. Fear only holds power over you when you let it stop you. Once you acknowledge it, you take away its control. One of the biggest misconceptions people have about fear is that it must be completely overcome before you can proceed. But fear doesn't work that way. You can't wait for the fear to disappear completely. Instead, take action with fear still present. Action reduces fear over time. The more steps you take towards your goal, the less hold fear has on you. And when fear pops up again, you'll be more familiar with it. You'll know how to push past it because you've done it before. Fear also tends to thrive in isolation. When you try to handle everything alone, fear seems larger, more intimidating. But when you bring your fears into the light, share them with others, or simply take action with a support system in place, it loses its grip. The fear of judgment is often worse than the actual judgment. When you speak about your fears or make them public, you rob them of their power. You realize that the fear was often far more intense in your head than it ever was in reality. You can also reframe fear. Instead of seeing it as a signal to stop, try viewing it as a signal to grow. When you fear something, it's usually an indication that you're stretching beyond what you know into new territory. And new territory means new opportunities. Fear is often a sign that you're on the verge of something important. It's the part of the process that gets you to that next level. So instead of backing off when you feel fear, lean in, embrace it, recognize it as part of the process. Another essential part of overcoming fear is understanding that failure is not fatal. People fear failing because they equate failure with finality. But failure isn't the end, it's feedback. Every failure contains lessons, insights, and opportunities for growth. When you can reframe failure as part of the process, it becomes far less intimidating. You stop fearing the outcome and start focusing on the journey. The fear of failure then transforms into an anticipation of what you'll learn and how you'll improve along the way. Building a mindset that embraces fear also means rejecting perfectionism. The idea that everything has to be flawless before you start holds you back more than fear itself. Perfectionism feeds into fear by telling you that anything less than perfect will result in judgment, rejection, or failure. But in reality, there is no such thing as perfect. There is only progress. And it's the willingness to take action, imperfect as it may be, that gets you closer to your goals. Fear will never disappear entirely. It's an inevitable part of being human. But when you learn to face it, when you understand its role in your growth, and when you continue to move forward despite it, fear no longer holds power over you. Instead, it becomes a signal that you are pushing boundaries, that you are growing, and that you are becoming the person capable of achieving your dreams. The more you face it, the less it controls you. And eventually, you'll find that fear is not a barrier, it's a companion on the journey toward greatness.